Welcome to episode 13 of the DWRD Net stationary feed. Today I'm glad to welcome Anna from the Well Appointed Desk. So, Anna, welcome. Why don't you introduce
Hello.
yourself and give a quick overview of who you are and what the Well Appointed Desk is?
Hi, my name is Anna. I am the chair at the Well Appointed Desk. It is a website that started off its life as a review site for pens, paper, ink, fountain pens, anything to make your desk lovely, and has slowly grown into its own little mini empire of product development and um, all sorts of stuff. So,
Very cool. I've been a long time reader, so it's great to
thank you.
actually get a chance to interview, and talk about some of the stuff that I've been a fan of and followed for probably at least a decade now.
Cool.
We'll get into that later to see
Awesome.
exactly how long, but so to start off, I have some kind of standard questions that I've been asking all the guests. So the
Cool.
first one, what are you currently writing with? What do you have inked right now?
Currently inked. A bevy of sailors is sort of my standard answer. For my planner and my journal, every month I pick a specific theme, and so there's usually like a color that goes with it, and so I fill my pens with inks that sort of go along with my theme. And I have become such a Sailor Pro Gear junkie that I basically have a rainbow of sailors. So I pick the sailor that best color coordinates with the current theme. This month, my theme is strawberries because June is the strawberry full moon, which happened to land on my birthday this year. It was last week. And so and I love strawberries anyway. So that was my theme. And so I actually have a Sailor Pro Gear that I bought from a friend at a pen show, and it is multiple shades of pink with green end caps. So it
Oh,
just
perfect.
basically looks like strawberry cream. It's perfect, and so that's my sort of my go-to. It has mm, Cosmosu in it, I think. I
Okay.
think that's what I put in it. And then I have a another Sailor Pro Gear that on my own I almost always use. It is the Kobe edition, the Nagasawa. Um, that's a sort of lime green color, which is the name I can never remember. It's like summer green or something like that translated. And then it always has a shade of matching green, usually Pen BBS Tolstoy. But when I say that to people, they get really mad at me because it's ink that's really hard to get now. And when I bought it, Pen BBS ink was super cheap and it came in like 70 milliliter bottles for like $15. And so
Yeah.
I just bought a lot of it. And when I found, there's one that's called Tolstoy that's very similar to another color that's called like matcha ice cream. And I think this month I switched to the matcha ice cream because I'm running out of my Tolstoy and I don't know if I'll ever be able to get anything similar.
No, I can
I've tried.
appreciate that. I actually have been traditionally in the past a darker ink user, and then at the Arkansas Pen Show this year, Lisa from Vanessa had made Fresh as a Daisy, which is kind of this pollen colored green, as she described it.
Ooh,
And I've
that is
been
one of her
using
favorite
that.
colors.
Yeah, I've been using that kind of lime pollinish green ever since. So, in terms of pens, you've been around the pen world forever. Do you have a Grail pen, or have you kind of purchased what you like at this point and moved things around as time's gone on?
I don't think I really have a Grail pen. I think this sort of obsessive collection of Sailor Pro Gears is sort of my Grail. Like, there's a couple models that came through that I've never been able to get. I don't have one of the Ink of the Witch ones from Bongo Box, but I really don't want to spend the kind of money that it would require to get one at this point in time. Um, but a lot of the pens that at one point had been sort of pens that I considered a Grail pen, I did actually manage to either acquire or lose my taste for them one way or the other. So like I had always wanted to have like a one of the Mont Blanc Rouge et Noir pens, and if you wait long enough, somebody sells them on Slack. And so I got a really good deal on it. And I remember it having like I think it said it was a fine nib, and then I had to have a nib grinder go in and actually make it a fine because Mont Blanc nibs are not fine, not even a little bit.
So ironic, I actually own a Rouge et Noir. It's my only Mont Blanc that I thought was a fine, and I had to get it ground down at the pen show this year because it was the wettest medium to broad leaning nib I owned. So that
Yep.
tracks very well.
Yes, it does. And
So,
just this past couple weeks ago when I was at the Triangle show, I was helping the Dromgools, and Larry had brought like the new like mini sized version of the like Mont Blanc that looks similar to the Rouge et Noir in terms of like the scale and the sort of width of the pen and everything. And he just kept showing it to me, and I'm like, dude, put that away. No, it's like a creamy white color. I would notoriously get ink all over it, and that would be the end of it. I'd be a very mad pen owner.
Well, with the well-appointed colors, the recent Mont Blanc announcement, the Wes Anderson one that's lime green. If you haven't seen that one, that could be maybe a more
appropriate
Mont
yes.
Blanc if you were looking to add one at some point in the future.
Yes, possibly.
So, how about inks? You said you have your standards for a couple, but in general, do you stick with the tried and true, or do you like to experiment, or a little bit of both, depending on the mood?
Well, a little bit of both. About a year ago, I quit my full-time job and started doing this craziness as my full-time job with a little bit of freelance on the side just to keep the lights on. And in the process of doing that, I completely panicked, like when I first got home, and realized that I had over 600 bottles of ink in my possession. We are not counting sample vials or minis or anything. It was just full bottles, 15 mil and up kind of things.
Yeah.
And so one of the first projects that I tackled was I reduced my ink collection down to 100. So from 600 to 100. And I did about a 5-piece blog post about the process. And I thought, if you do, Roy G. Biv, that's like 8, red, orange, yellow.
Yeah.
There's about 6 or 8 colors. You add in like grays, blacks, so at that point, that's 10 of each, potentially 10 of each color. Like, who needs more than 10 blues, right? So I streamlined my collection. I got it down to 97. And then, of course, like 3 weeks later, I discovered like a whole box of ink that I didn't realize I had. So efforts were made to sort of taper back a little bit. And it was actually really great because it made it a little bit easier for me, because I did have 47 shades of sort of lime barf green, and it was like, so when I went to fill a pen, I spent 45 minutes just trying to pick which shade of barf green, and maybe I put it in a pen that was too fine, and that kind of thing. But your question was actually like, am I experimental with inks? Yes, clearly. I have no shame. I will. And just at the Triangle show, like I accumulated like 8 more bottles of ink, and some of it is just like dumb stuff, like, oh, I've never tried this. Oh, all 4 of these inks match. They're from a collection. I have to have all 4. So clearly I have not stayed under 100, but I feel like it was a good experiment for myself to just figure out what I really do like, what I need and what I don't need.
No, but that gives you a chance, if nothing else, for writing about it in the future, where I had 100, now I have more, but is 100 enough, or is it 150, or is it depend, mix or match, or changing things,
Yeah. So it's been fun to do, and it's also gotten to where because I limited how many inks I had, and so I was really like, if I wanted a green, I had 3 or 4 to pick from in a specific range. So I got to figure out really quick that maybe the reason I purchased some inks that I loved and they looked great in swatches and all that kind of stuff, but I never kept them inked in a pen, was because really I use such fine nib pens to begin with that a lot of those beautiful light pastel, low saturation colors, they don't work well in fine nib pens. And so if I want to keep bottles of these beautiful colors, then I need to either find something else to do with them, or embrace wider nib pens, or let them go to someone who can get enjoyment out of them. So
no, and just from a timeliness standpoint, you just posted, I think it was today or yesterday. This episode will come out a little bit later, but the Diamine, or the not Diamine, the ink archiving book.
The Dominant Industry book.
Yeah, the Dominant Industry. So I'll put a link to that definitely in the notes, because that is another way doing the painting to use the other multicolored inks. And kind of legitimize having the large collection, because then it's for art, it's not just for writing. So
Absolutely. And I also think that those ink archiving books are so great for all the samples you might have accumulated, because there's not a ton of ink in there. You might fill a pen once or twice, but really the point of samples was to see if you wanted a whole bottle of a particular color. So there may be colors that are too light for you to use in a pen or too much shimmer for your taste, but using them in something like the ink archiving book where you're just painting or playing or just throwing them on a page, and just like mucking about with them is such a it's kind of liberating. Like, honestly, when I started playing around, I didn't intend to. I was not a fan of coloring. I'm gonna confess that right here. As a graphic designer, part of my job often is coloring stuff in Photoshop. You know, someone will give me black and white line art and they're like, but we
yeah.
want it full color. So like my job is to color, you know, everything I need to know in life I learned in kindergarten. This is me. This is me. I color for a living. So the idea of like sitting down in the evenings at the end of the day and doing more coloring has always just been like no way, I don't want to do that. Until I started painting with fountain pen inks in the ink archiving books, and now I'm freaking hooked. It's crazy. It's like I'm like, are they going to come out with another book soon? I'm really excited. What
Those
happened to
books
me?
seem to have a following, because one of my local pen friends is Olive Octopus Ink. So Lisa
Yes.
does the ink archiving books on her streams, and she's using samples because people will send her all these inks. And, since swatching is her hobby, she's able to combine and then try, oh, this page is going to be all the inks that were sent to me from Queen of Washi, or, something like that. So it's a nice way to kind of experiment with the inks, and it gives you good reference to see how they're going to behave if you decide, you know what, I painted with that last week. That would be the perfect ink to go in this new pen, or something along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think by playing with them, you also get some of that, the experience that some people talk about, like being able to do the, seeing the color separating by adding a little bit of water, the same thing that people do with like paper towel things, just to see like, oh, there's a lot of blue in this purple color or whatever. But adding water, putting a drop or two onto a plate and adding a little bit of water and painting with it, you kind of discover the same thing. Like I was playing with Vinta Ubi, also known as mulberry, which is a very dark, almost like a deep red wine kind of color. When you add water to it, it turns a bright pink, like a rosy pink color. And I was like, okay, I like it in both of its formats. I like it watered down, but I also like it in its sort of original deep dark form. So it's kind of fun to just like all of a sudden a little bit more about your inks and how, to your point, how they behave.
Well, and that would be a cool thing to do, since the dominant industry books have 2 copies of each thing. Do one where you water, or four. It's 4.
One of them for sure. I think the Atlantis one has 4 copies of each piece of artwork. The Elixir book, because I just wrote this review today, has 3.5 or something, okay. But they added some blank pages in the back so you can just goof around or use it as a journal or something.
Well, that would be a cool experiment to do the undiluted version on one, and then do the water diluted with the same inks on the other, and then compare them after the fact. That would be a neat side-by-side, showing what a difference it could make. So,
well, and some of them will like have like a full page illustration on one side, and then on the other side is actually like smaller individual, like either small spot illustrations with little blocks with it, so that you can actually put like swatches like of each of the colors that you're using, so you can kind of do the full concentration and then paint with the water down. That's kind of what I did on a page.
That makes sense.
Would you like to see it? It's right here.
Oh, definitely.
Let's see it.
I was at Vaness this weekend. Some of the Middle Tennessee Pen Club went out there, and one of the people was very excited to buy the archiving book. So they were going home with it, and they were already posting on the Arkansas Pen Club Discord if they're loving it. And they'd only had it for like 24 hours. They'd already done multiple pages.
So this was one that I just painted with inks, and I actually did this in a hotel room because I did not have... I didn't bring any ink with me, so like I only had a few colors. So this is really only 4 different ink colors, but with just different saturations, and in some cases I mixed them. And then where's the little swatchy thing? Oh, here it is. So let me see.
Oh, very neat. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just like I think in this case I actually had 2 different colors, but like this was watered down and then 100% of that apricot jam. So yeah, kind of fun.
Yeah, I've only seen them through streams and whatnot. I'm kind of getting into watercolor, but unfortunately, when you get into something, came back from my vacation that I got them to take with me, and then they've been sitting next to me on my desk because I've had other stuff come up. So I think I got to revive that soon. But so in terms of, we've covered pens and inks. What about papers? What are some of your favorite papers?
I'm 100% B6 Stology. It's like, it's my go-to, and I know a lot of people have had issues with it, but it behaves very consistently for me because I largely use fine nib pens. I think if you start to get into broads and stubs and things like that, the paper will sometimes bleed or do more show through. But it's like that sweet spot between Tomoe River 5268 GSM and then maybe like a Cosmo Air Light for me. And the grid on the paper is so light it doesn't bother me, because normally I would not have grid paper at all. Not my friend. So yeah, that's sort of my go-to, and I feel really bad. I mean, I love Midori MD, the standard, and I love the MD Cotton, and I love the MD Light. And if you see me at a pen show, that's probably what I'm going to convince you to buy. But because people have such mixed feelings right now about Tomoe River because of the issues that they had last year. And to be honest, like, yes, I understand, that their quality control was so consistent for so long that the fact that it isn't consistent this year has made people very uncomfortable. But at the same time, like, when you compare it with 98% of the other paper currently available in the world, it's still top 5. Like, even if it performs badly, it performs better than just about anything else. So I get a little annoyed at people who are just like, I'm never buying Tomoe River again. And I'm like, then they're not going to make it anymore. Like, at a certain point, we're the things that are keeping it alive. So if we all like say we're never going to buy it again, then it's gone for good. As a lefty, I prefer the 68.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's a good follow-up question. That's, with you being a lefty, I've heard it said that most left-handed writers, especially fountain pen writers, are some of the most skilled at pens and papers because you've been dealing with it ever, your entire life.
Since we were born. With that? Yes. And I still make a mess. And if you look at any of my reviews somewhere, in some spot, there's a smudgy because I don't always work from the top to the bottom or the bottom to the top. And I will stick my hand in something because I forgot to write something or I forgot to do something. Like, I did it today. Like, I would just stuck my hand in it. So there you go. Proof positive that I end up with ink on my hands.
Oh, definitely. So, and this next question is one of my favorite questions. And considering what the Well-Appointed Desk is and the kind of mission behind it, I think you'll probably have a great answer. What's your favorite stationery adjacent item? So like a case, a bag, something that's not a pen, paper, or ink, but it's pretty much a requirement that's, on your desk or something you use. Like, mine is my book weight from Good Made Better. I use it all the time. So something like that.
My instinct is to be like, any of the Inky Dreams rickshaw cases are excellent and I highly recommend them. Can I tell you where you can get them? Because I'm so proud that I had the opportunity to do those. And I do absolutely love rickshaw. I have from the get-go. They're great products and I love that they love to work with the pen community. That being said, I do actually use most of my collection pretty regularly. But the stuff that I use on a daily basis, we were joking like before we started to record that my house purse is probably my go-to, which is, it's a joke because I live in a really small house, but I do tend to move from my studio, which you see here, to like the kitchen table or the couch or whatever to do like journaling or something. And so this, if you see the platinum 3776 and a vintage nib from 1928. A friend of mine picked this up for me while she was in Japan. It is from Old Resta. I don't think they still make them, so please don't come after me. But in it, I carry all my journals and everything around my house. So like if I worked in an office, I would probably still carry this around. I'd probably just have like my phone and, you know, and my keys, and I throw it in here, and then I would just take this with me. But it's just a nice little mini bag called Resta.
No, and I
So,
remember you talking about that on the Patron podcast one time, and I was telling my wife about it because she was at the kitchen table and she's like, oh, I got to pick up this Travelers and these pins and this. I was like, well, I just heard about this. It's like a house purse. It's a tote bag, and she had tons of tote bags, so she actually has a version of that now. You know, after hearing about it, that she uses because she has her work office downstairs, and then she's writing books. So in our kind of bonus area, she has her writing desk. So
perfect.
if she's going from back and forth, she needs to carry the pens, the notebooks if she's been drafting or things like that. So
Yeah,
she's
whatever.
followed
You
up
stick
with
your
that.
phone in there, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes it so that you can still balance your coffee or your soda or whatever it is that you must also take from room to room.
Definitely.
So I did make a video about my house purse if you want more details of what's inside of it. It's on YouTube somewhere. Well Pointed Desk.
No, we'll put a link to that in the notes as well. And well, just as a general note, we'll put a link to the website. Anything we talk about, be sure and check the notes afterwards, because put links to how to get in touch with Anna in terms of the shop, the social medias, and all that kind of stuff, so you can get more information. And especially if you hear something that you like when we're talking about, you can go find it or maybe purchase it or things like that. So let's get into the main part of the Well-Appointed Desk. So to start off, how did the Well-Appointed Desk come to be, and around how long ago was that?
So this is a really dumb story. So I worked at Hallmark Cards as a greeting card designer for about 20 years. And about 15 years ago, a woman came in to do sort of like a little presentation for the creative staff. And she started talking about how you could, at that point in time, you could make a website about any obscure, you know, subculture thing, and you would develop a following. This was, you know, pre-Instagram. This was like just so long ago. And her, I don't even remember what her website was, but it was super obscure. It was like home decor that was all a specific color. It was like the turquoise blog or something like that on Blogger. And she was just really inspiring. And she was like, if you have a passion or hobby or an interest, there are other people in the world who do too. So put it out there. You're going to find your tribe. You're going to find other people who are into the same things you are. And then, you know, people are going to ask you to speak at large corporate events. That hasn't happened yet for me, but so literally I came back from that meeting and that presentation, and I logged into Tumblr because I didn't want, at the time I was like, I'm not going to do this and pay a lot of money for a website or anything like that. So I launched it on Tumblr, and at the time there were really only a couple like websites out there. This guy called Pen Addict, and then this other guy, Pencil Revolution. So it's like, okay, pens and paper are covered. So what am I? I'm the desk. And I became the Well-Appointed Desk because I was like, I didn't want to do some other pen pun, and I didn't want to do a pencil pun or whatever. So that's how I became the desk.
Oh, that's a cool story, because
thank you.
One thing, it says, yes, it was a while ago because Blogger, that was like all the rage around 15 years ago. And now it's like, and you started on Tumblr, which it's kind of, you know, as time goes on, the internet changes, and some of those old stalwart, you know, original places kind of drift off, and kind of, they're still there a little bit, but they're not the heyday they have now.
No.
So that's a neat way to have a start, you know, knowing the roots.
Yeah. The funny thing is that I had still been like cross-posting to Tumblr for years, but I don't have the password to get into the account anymore. So like it has now, like only in the last couple of months has it like officially locked me out so that I can't even cross-post through WordPress. I think it has finally died, the Tumblr page, but I'd always cross-posted. So even after I left Tumblr, it was still being, you know, and that was because I did Tumblr for a couple of years before I launched Well-Appointed Desk officially on WordPress. Gotcha. And that's where I've been ever since. So all those Squarespace ads, sorry guys, not moving this monstrosity. It's staying right where it is.
No, that's one of those things. My personal website's been since like January 1st of 2000, and it's WordPress because I know it now. And once you kind of get WordPress how you want it, just keep doing it like it is and don't change too much, and it'll serve you well.
100%. And there, I mean, just the functionality that exists on WordPress is not to be like too in the weeds of like tech, but I appreciate that you can find new templates. They offer new ones every year, so you can switch the look and feel if you want, or if you're starting to change how you're doing things, or you can just leave it the same, and they just a lot of it gets updated regularly. So
No, very true. So when most people think of well-appointed desk, they associate, and the first thing that pops up in their mind is coloring. So
it just makes me so happy to hear that.
Well, no, I mean it's true. It's so talk about how, it was you and your husband who came up with the idea for coloring, and it's kind of the de facto standard for ink swatching now. So just kind of talk about how that came to be. I mean, it started with what, and then as did it start with the small cards or the Rolodex cards or whatnot? Because I actually have some sitting here because I have some inks I need to swatch, so
Awesome.
just kind of talk about how that came to existence.
So I had been using like one of the Japanese brands word cards. There was, I don't remember if it was Nemesine or who, but it was like a jet pen staple of these little cards that somehow just coincidentally happen to have really nice paper. And so fountain pen nerds had discovered these little word cards. And as soon as it started to like pick up traction that everybody was using these to swatch their inks, they discontinued the product. And I bought like 6 packs or something like that from Jet Pens before they like removed them from their inventory. And I was like beside myself. One day I was telling my husband, I'm like, what am I going to do? We're about to run out of these cards. And he's like, I'm a printer and you're a designer. Can we not figure this out? And I was like, no. Can we do that? Like, it would be okay? And he's like, don't lots of people make word cards? And I'm like, yeah, like most of Japan, like all kids use them for their vocabulary and studying. And he's like, so we just make our own, but we'll make it with really good paper and we'll letterpress the covers and we'll, and you'll design really nice covers for them and it'll be great. And I'm like, oh, really? You think this will be okay? So I was like in a complete panic at the idea of like launching a product at the time because one, Hallmark was very weird about what you could and could not do as an employee.
Gotcha.
But this was far enough outside of their scope that I felt like it was okay. And then we spent about 3 to 6 months searching for paper because we could have just gone with the best possible freaking paper we could find, but it costs like $5 a sheet. And I'm like, I'm competing with a previously existing product that was under $10. I'm like, we can't make these $50. This is not going to work. The paper would be awesome. But yeah, so the hunt was on for paper that we could get in the United States relatively easily, that showed sheen, that was a little bit heavier weight than just like a standard paper, so that you could use them like a card and kind of flip through them and that kind of thing. Because it's like, because a lot of the people who have seen the cards are like, well, but I don't write on cards, I write on paper. And I'm like, I get it, but we wanted something that would be easy to flip through. And obviously if they were all tiny little sheets of Rhodia paper, that they would not hold up to being on a ring or any kind of binder system. Like they would eventually just degrade. So we needed something a little heavier weight, which was how we ended up with the paper that we have. And what was crazy was we looked at, because my husband's a printer, he's a letterpress printer. We have access to like basically every kind of like high quality paper made in the United States. They send you little booklets to sort of see what they look like. And he'd bring me these books and I would literally do like one stroke with a pen and be like, nope. And he's like, how can you be? And I'm like, no, it's feathering. It's soaking into the, no, out. And so he laughs now because he still has some of these books where I have like just one little across it. And he's like, yeah, that was my wife. Sorry about that. But when we found the paper that we liked, the shocking situation was that the distributor for that paper was actually in Kansas City.
Oh, wow.
We were like, oh, well, this is bonkers. And so the first batch of paper that we ordered, the sales rep drove it over in his like Toyota Celica in like the back seat, because we didn't order that much paper, because like printing paper comes in giant, 20 by 40, 26 by 40 inch sheets. So he just like popped the hatch through a stack like this, because then we would cut it down into the little cards and everything. And he brought it over. He's like, I just thought, I want to come see the shop and, just tootle over. And so that was how we got our first batch of paper. And so what most people don't know is every single card is die cut individually. So it is not cut down to size and side and then corner rounded, which is what a lot of people think we do. Everything is done in one cut. We occasionally when I pack orders, I use the frames as packing paper. So if you ever get an order from me and it has very similar white paper, it's actually the like full press sheet that has been poke all the little pages out. So that's how coloring got started. That was 2017. We launched it at the Arkansas Pen Show, because we laughed, because I'm good friends with Lisa at Van Ness and everything, and she was super supportive and the whole thing. And I was like, if I'm going to fall on my face, please don't let me do it in San Francisco. I'm going to do it in Arkansas. Like, if no one buys this and they think I'm crazy, I'd like minimal press coverage. But the first person to pick them up was Carrie from Fountain Pen Day, which he had come down and had a table and was hanging out for the weekend. And the first thing he did was take a picture of it and then post it on the internet, on Instagram. And I'm like, dude, really? And he's like, people are going nuts. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Because I was literally like the day before we launched it, I thought I was going to barf on myself. I was so nervous. So nervous about it. And so we did coloring exclusively, just the regular 2x4 inch size for about a year or so before we introduced the Colodex, maybe 2 years. And the Colodex came about because Bob was watching me open and close the rings over and over again to like take swatches out for my reviews, because I had them all sorted by brand. And so I would like take out this green from Diamine and then go to another ring and take out the green from Colorverse, and et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, there's got to be an easier way to do this. He's like, that's really hard to get in and out. And then he had a Rolodex that he kept at work and already had a die that he inherited from somebody, like a Rolodex die. And he had like cut all of his, like, when they test print stuff for letterpress, they always use like the same paper over and over again, and it's called a make ready. And so oftentimes it starts to look really cool and collagey. And so he would die cut out make ready and put it into this Rolodex, and it was on the table. So when people came in to talk about getting letterpress printed, they could flip through this and they could see just sort of like how colors look when they overlap each other, and some of the different projects that they worked on. And he's like, why don't we just make Rolodex cards? And I said, that's a great idea. I love that idea. So that was how the decks got started. And then we added in, over the years, I think the next thing we added was the oversize, which got its name because people were just asking for larger size paper.
Yeah.
So we made it, and it's just a spiral topped sort of pocket notebook. It's not quite 4x6. And it got its name because a good friend of ours often does the auctions at pen shows. And we sit in the back, my friend Jesse and I, and get a little tipsy. And you can sneak booze into pen show auctions. Nobody notices. And so they'd be presenting a pen, and he would be like, this is a Waterman blah, blah, blah oversize. And so then we would just like basically just tease him incessantly about saying oversize. And so that's how the oversize got its name. So that was named after for a friend of ours. And then we did the dippers because we had, mostly it was because there was like a little strip of paper at the bottom of each of our press sheets. And Bob's like, what can we do with these so that we're not wasting paper? Like, how can we put this to use that might be useful to people? And so I was playing around with what he had, and I took a piece of that paper and I just dunked it into an ink bottle. And I'm like, that fits right in the ink bottle. Hence Dipper. That's how it got its name. So we decided to do those, and we joke because they are our loss leader because it is so finicky to like put the ring or put the ball chain on the dippers.
Yeah.
That it's like if we charged by the hour for labor, like they'd be $30. They're so funny. But mostly I do it like, and I make all the dippers. Every single dipper I have touched. I put them, I assemble them, put the little ball chain on them, put them in the baggies. It's all me because Bob hates to do them. Flip side, he does almost every single coloring. I will sometimes come in and help and assemble rings and covers and bag and tag kind of thing, but he does most of the work on those. So there are no machines that assemble our product. We do all the work.
So one question I have, because it's all done by hand, was it somewhat intentional that when you buy a set, it looks like an ice cream sandwich because of the cards?
God, I hope so.
Whenever I see there was some stream I was watching and someone was holding up a stack of the color rings, and I was like, it looks like an ice cream sandwich, and then like 5 people in the chat were like, I will never not be able to unsee that now.
Never. Yep. That was not intentional, but we're delighted that that's what it looks like, and we do like to lean into that a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, happy accident.
Yeah. I'm glad it looks like that and not something like really disgusting for people. Ice cream sandwiches are good. It could have been so much worse.
So, since you've been making these, just do you have any estimate of how many Color Ring or Colodex cards have been made since 2017?
Not a clue. We do have Bob has a spreadsheet of pretty much everybody that we sold to as like a wholesale retailer. And I have some indication of how many have sold on on our web shop and Etsy, but we've never really tallied it all up. It's a lot. We've sold a lot. I mean, because in a given year, just in wholesale, we probably sell about 30,000. Wow. Some years are higher, some years are lower. We sold probably twice that many in 2020. People didn't have a lot to do. They were finally getting around to testing all those inks.
No, I mean, if you're stuck at home, you're going to start looking for those little things to do. Because when I got into pins, I never swatched inks when I first started. I mean, I just had the bottles and I would use them, and that was that. It was only when I was kind of out of pins-ish from 2020 for a couple of years, because I wasn't going into an office. I wasn't taking my pins with me. And when I came back, now I'm like, oh, I need to swatch this. And that's kind of how I got started back or decided to do YouTube. I'm going to swatch 2 Inkvent calendars. And I'm going to make it on videos. And now here we are. But
yep.
So along that, you've got the store where you sell the coloring stuff. But talk about some of the other products you carry. I know that my wife has been a fan of the dragon clip that you had. I think you're currently sold out. And then some of the
I just
little
reordered those.
Oh, great. And the little color. So just talk about how you decide on the other products that you carry, be it the variety of washi or the clips or the accessories, or, how do you fill your store up with things that you want to sell and share with other people?
So this is a story I've told a couple times, and I hope that Joe doesn't mind. But Joe Kreis of Gentleman Stationer has sort of been my my northern light in regards to when I started putting affiliate product and like other small makers into my shop. I looked to what Joe was doing. And I didn't want to replicate his shop exactly, but I wanted to take the same tactic. And if people are not familiar with Gentleman Stationer, when he started his shop, he very much focused on things that he likes as a professional, as a lawyer, as an office worker, as a very soft-spoken gentleman. So the aesthetics, the things that appeal to him are very specific. And I often send people that like sort of you get a read on someone like, oh, they mentioned that they really like Lockbee. And I'm like, have you checked out Gentleman Stationer? I think he's going to have the things you like. So when I started adding product to our shop, I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted it to reflect what I'm passionate about, which is nerd culture, which is pop culture, which is comic books and D&D and video games and just being a freaking nerd. And because that's also what we've always done with Skylab. So when Bob and I decide to print something new, it's always in that realm of what would we want to use? Like, I don't ever want to sell anything in my shop that I wouldn't use myself, So it's like occasionally there'll be something super cutesy in there because I like it. But I do tend to lean more into sort of vintage aesthetic, more into, like I said, sort of the fantasy, sci-fi, like that kind of thing. Like we've done a lot of, like, I have it in my head that because we've done some things largely related to a certain product that people may have recognized on the Disney Channel. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to go to jail, because they'll sue my ass. But in that way that, like, we're fans.
Yeah.
I've been a fan of this particular product since I was like 7 years old. But in the same way, like, I really want to do something that's sort of Star Trek related because I feel like they don't get the same cred that this other one gets.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we just make a bunch of fun stuff that we like. We just did side quest notepads because life.
You just have to approach it like Halloween costume makers. It's not Princess Leia. It's Space Princess. It's like the cheesy, like, what would it be? The great value name for whatever the product is.
Exactly. The slightly but not entirely generic version. But, which is how we've ended up with things like the Stay on Target notepad. It doesn't say anything. But yeah. So
since you mentioned D&D, I just got these yesterday because I've started doing some letter writing through actually Gentleman Stationer's Patreon Discord. Do you have the D&D stamps?
Yes, I do. And for a stretch, when people ordered stickers on my site, I try to package them just in first class so that I only ship them for like $1.50. It's like super low budget. I've been having a little problem with my shop and shipping costs. Last week, I spent a lot of time crediting people because it was charging them like $21 for shipping. I'm like, what is wrong with this software? You're killing me, people. But yeah, so like my envelopes are green. Shocking, I know. And then I put the D&D.
And even the little, you said the kind of retro stuff, your little logo sticker that comes in every order with the kind of mid-century modern-esque lady holding up the coloring, things like that are a nice little touch that, I'm making a well-appointed desk order. I'm going to get a little green sticker and I'm going to get one of those and I'm going to get a bookmark and, those type things.
Yep. So we really love our little swag kits that come with every order. And it's one of those things that, like, we do also sell to a lot of other shops, people that I love and I love their stores, but you don't get a swag kit if you order from them.
No, definitely. And even the new little washi tape, Vanessa was giving out some of those at the Arkansas Pen Show, like with the Inky. Would you call that Inky Dreams washi? Is that its proper name? The little ink bottles?
That's its proper name.
Yeah, that's great. I keep it in my rickshaw, just to have some washi in there because it's a thinner roll, so it's easy.
It's about a half an inch. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and let's get back to the website. One thing that I've always appreciated is that you write stuff, but you also have a group of regular contributors. So how did the site, now that we know its beginnings of a kind of Tumblr-esque site that grew into a WordPress, when did you get to the point where you're like, hey, I want my friends to write on here too, to share their views or their reviews or things like that. So just kind of talk about how the contributor side of Well Appointed Desk came to be.
It very organically, I guess, for lack of a better word, because there were just circumstances where it's like I had become friends, just whether online or in person, with various people who were kind of into pens as well. And like Tina from, what is hers called? Coffee and Ink. I can't even remember what her actual, but she does a lot of urban sketching. And I really wanted to have more variety, like I have a specific perspective or approach to the reviews that I write. So it was nice to have somebody who would come in and be like, I take all my supplies outside and I draw what I see in my world. And I was like, do you want to write for me? I'll get you, like I will provide you with the stuff to review if you will do it. And this year was Tina wrote her her farewell post this year, but we didn't make a big to-do about it because she didn't really want a big to-do. But she has decided that her goal is to sort of pare down what she's accumulating and had done a whole lot. So she's like, I feel like that is kind of a double standard to be like, I'm paring everything down and then I'm getting, review product. And she's like, and then I have to figure out what to do with it. Do I keep it? Do I donate it? Do I give it away? Like that kind of thing. And she's like, I don't want to do it anymore. And I'm like, that's totally fine. So other people have come on at various times. My friend Laura, who is probably my most regular contributor, came on maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It might have been more like 7. It's been quite a while. But she came in because she was somebody who was new to the hobby and she was getting all excited about fountain pens. And I said, I'm too jaded to review some of these $30 pens and stuff like that, or have that moment where you're picking out a pen that I looked at her and I'm like, if you really want to review that, okay, but boy, and in retrospect now she's like, I can't believe I bought that pen. That pen was terrible. But she came at it again from that new user perspective that after 7 or 8 years of doing this, on top of had been interested in pens and everything prior to that, I didn't have that sort of newbie vibe. And so Laura coming in was great. And she also approaches it differently. She doesn't have an art background. She's very much kind of, her day job is very office-y. So she approaches things much more for like to-do lists and things like that. And then Jesse and Jacqueline got involved because we kept showing up at the same pen shows. And eventually I was just like, why don't you guys just write for me? They said, okay. But both of them have also paired back this year. So I actually might be looking for new people. And I have approached some people who have said, I'm not sure if I want to do that. So, but we will see. We'll see.
No, very cool.
And, it's the first time I've had to deal with basically employee turnover. It's kind of a new experience for me.
No, but in a way that's kind of good because it keeps, like you said, you brought Laura on because it was a fresh viewpoint. So having someone else, because now that if she's been doing it 7 years, she's an old pro. Yep. So, just because there's so many new pens coming out now. I mean, think of TWSBI. How many new colors do they put out every week, it seems? Or, all the new Kavekos. Someone who's new to pens, that first TWSBI, the first vac filler or something like that is going to be like an eye-opening experience where, oh, it's a vac filler? Yeah, I don't really like those. I don't like to clean them. So I'm just going to get a cartridge converter instead, or I'm going to get something else.
I already have 7 of those, and I've written 3 reviews about them already. I don't really have anything else to say other than it's a different color.
Right.
We've done, but yeah.
No, so that's cool, but it kind of ties into my next question I had. I know in the well-appointed desk in the stationery world, pen shows are kind of where you launch the product, and that's kind of a part of owning any sort of small business in the stationery world. So kind of talk about pen shows, how you got into them, and I know you help out, like you mentioned earlier, the Dromgool's table or different brick and mortar store tables who might also carry your product, so it's a win-win. You're able to help promote their stuff and yours. So just kind of talk about how you've approached pen shows and that, and what shows do you have still on the schedule for the rest of this year?
I'm laughing at you guys get to see just like a tiny smidgy bit of one of my cats. They've just been fed. My husband just got home and fed them, so now they're all ready to take a nap. So I'll turn just a bit so you get the full grumpy face. So pen shows. Okay, so I got started going to pen shows very fortuitously. A friend of mine, Brad Dowdy, asked me if I would like to come to Atlanta to be a part of his Kickstarter Pen Addict podcast project. Hard to say no. So I want to say that my very first pen show was actually recording the very first Kickstarter Pen Addict Live event, which the first time we did it, we did not have anyone in the room with us when we did it. So me, Mike, and Brad kind of went into a separate room, and I think that they ended up having speakers or something in a bar lounge area for people to listen, because I don't think that we really expected people to want to be present. We thought it was going to more intentionally be like people online who are hardcore Pen Addict fans who would want to hear sort of live from the event type of coverage. But like the little lobby area outside had like 100 people who were basically like, we're listening. And so the second year, we did an actual like live in front of a studio audience kind of thing, which was absolutely sweat inducing to like all of a sudden go from like sitting in your room with having no idea how many people are listening to you to literally sitting in front of like 100 people watching you, and you're like, what? But yeah, so my very first pen show was kind of like, I kind of got the celebrity treatment. It was really kind of weird and fun and cool and awesome. But from that first experience, I want to say that at that particular show or the following year, Brad ended up helping Lisa Van Ness at her table because she needed help, and she didn't want to take people out of her store and like have them travel all the way from Arkansas to Atlanta and back again, because it would mean like people are out of the store for ages. And she got a wild idea that she's like, well, what if I get pen show celebrities to work my table, because they obviously know about the product. And I love Lisa. She's like, and they're not going to steal anything from me because they don't want to be called out on the internet for being thieves. which was 100%. I mean, like, I can see the point, but not even like on the first 10 things I would have thought of about like why you would have hired us. You know, sure, we're knowledgeable. People recognize us in some instances, you know, those types of things. But like, they're not going to steal because I'll call them out on the internet was not on my list. So that was how I ended up meeting and starting to work. Honestly, like I met Lisa like officially when I started working for her, because Brad was like, hey, you should hire her. And so that was how I started working for Lisa. And that made it possible for me to attend more pen shows because it's not particularly cost effective to go to a lot of pen shows if you're trying not to go broke. So I would help her, and as a result would get some of my expenses covered and things like that. And from there, I have helped with other tables, depending, like, you know, whether Lisa needed my help, if she had someone else who was helping her. Joe's helped her a lot over the years. Brad has helped her a bit. So it's just been sort of you know, I also got to meet all these people, which is great because I'm an introvert and I might not have met people otherwise because I'm not somebody who would just like walk up to people and be like, hi, my name's Anna. You know, they come up to me and they say, help me find this ink. And I'm like, how did you hear about, you know, like if they make the opening, I'm good. Yeah. So in regards to the pen shows this year, I have lost count of how many I have already attended, but I will be in Portland for the Pacific Northwest Pen Show with Drum Ghouls in July. You know, I have a freaking, hold on a minute.
Well, while you're looking that up, I know one thing, if you're not familiar, for people watching or listening, the Well Appointed Desk is like the quintessential list of pen shows.
That's where I'm going.
There's a link at the top, you know, the pen show directory. So if you want to know where or when a pen show is going to happen, go to the Well Appointed Desk website, and it's a link on the top. And that is referenced by so many people, like on Brad's Twitch stream or on different conversations. It's like, oh, you need to know a pen show? Go look at Anna's list.
F3. Yeah, no, I realize I'm a hotkey now. He's told me that. And there was something else that people always asked him about. Oh, refills. I get hit for the refills as well. Yeah, so I will be at the Pacific Northwest Show July 11th through the 13th. I will be at the DC Pen Show as part of the Van Ness Pen Lounge, which is going to be in the basement. They have their own ballroom. We're going to set up outside. I think Joe Crace from Gentleman Stationer will also be there. And that is July 31st through August 3rd. Let's see. After that, Dallas Pen Show, September 26th and 27th. And I think that is the last show I am doing. Help me, Jesus. I think I did a calculation at the beginning of the month or the beginning a couple of weeks ago of all the pen shows and / stationery events that I have or will attend this year. And I think I'm matching my record of 9 shows. It's a lot of
So
shows.
that makes me think of a question that I didn't have on the list, but it ties in because, and it also ties into one of the later questions about your Patreon podcast. But this is something I was actually, when I was at Venice this last weekend, was talking to Lisa briefly about of how do you feel, or what are your views so far on the stationary events that are not pin shows versus pin shows? I mean, is it a refreshing change? It seems like it's a different audience and a different appeal and just a different experience. So I know you've been to the Chicago one, you went to the Little Craft Fest one in Houston. So just kind of talk about the planner or stationary events versus the pin show.
So I've also attended the Chicago Planner conference. That was last year in November, and I went with Lisa from Van Ness. The most fascinating thing was not realizing how similar but different these events would be. The Chicago Planner Conference is very planner focused, and it is very much set up as a conference and not a pen show. So there is a marketplace at that event, but it is not the sort of key feature where at pen shows it's the marketplace, and then there are events and activities and workshops and classes around the marketplace. At the PlannerCon, it was like it was about the classes and workshops, and like a keynote presentation and things like that took precedent over the market, to the point where most of the market vendors were either teachers or workshop leaders or whatever. So when the workshops were going on, they closed the marketplace. So as a vendor, we only had to work a couple of hours at a time, and then we would either go off to a workshop or teach something, and then come back, work for a couple of hours, be able to go off and do something and come back, which was kind of cool. It also put people in a situation where because everybody who attended for the whole weekend. So they knew when the marketplace was open. So like that first day, a lot of people were just looky-loos because they knew they could come back later. So it was a very different experience. And on Sunday, there was like a 2-hour window, which if anybody's been to a pen show on a Sunday, you'll know that they tend to be really slow. And a lot of times vendors will start to pack up several hours before the show's actually supposed to end. So the way that they did this event, the PlannerCon, was that they literally had what they called a power hour. It was like 11 to noon was like the last window of shopping, and that was it. And they were like, we close at noon, so this is your last chance to pick up anything you saw, which was great because it meant we had time to pack up and sort of move out of the hotel before it got dark out, because it was late November. So, but yeah, so that was a totally different experience, and totally different from the stationary events. So I did not get to go to Yaseka's event last year, but did go to the Chicago Stationery Fest as a vendor. And then I went to the Houston event, helping the Drum Ghouls. And that was sort of a last minute arrangement. They were like, we're desperate for help. And I'm like, fine, here I come. And it was my first chance to actually go to Houston. So that was cool. I'd never been in their store before. I've worked for them for years, and I've never set foot in the store. So I got to meet everybody, and we could all exchange how angry I get at them and how they pack the boxes, and they could be mad at me for how I repack them when I send them back. Because it's like, who packed this? Like a crazy person? And then they could say the same thing about me. Because when you pack up on a Sunday, like Larry is like, when he's ready to go, he is ready to go. And if you are not throwing that stuff in the boxes fast enough, he starts looking real angry. I don't know if you've ever met Larry Dromgoole, but he's the nicest man in the whole world. But he has like that big handlebar mustache, and and you're like, okay, whatever you want, I will do whatever you want. He doesn't mean to look scary, but he can when he doesn't mean to, but when he's ready to go, you can tell.
No.
But yeah, so the Chicago Stationery event had its own set of problems in terms of just like growing pains and that kind of thing. But it was a smaller event than a lot of things. There were like, I'm going to say 60 vendors, but it was a real cross section of vendors, and it was all mostly small makers. The only shop, like pen shop, that was present was Kirk Spear and Sailor North America, and Retro 51 came. But Retro 51 was actually Retro 51 came, and Sailor North America was Sailor North America Penlux that came. So Kirk Spear was really like, Pen Realm was like the only actual pen shop that came. We came as Well Pointed Desk, so mostly we were selling what you see in our shop, and I didn't bring any affiliate merchandise because a lot of the people that I work with were actually vending at the event. So I actually got to meet the artist who does Creeping Moon, who I absolutely love her, and I was so excited to get to meet her because she was super charming and was really fun. And I actually got to meet other vendors from other places in the US who either own shops and make their own product and that kind of thing. But the Stationery Fest did lean in more towards stickers, washi tape, prints. There were, several letterpress print vendors. Field Notes was there because they're in Chicago. I'm trying to think what else was there. There was like one or two vendors who like specifically made like planners or journals or that kind of thing. But mostly it was like sticker and washi tape vendors. So from the standpoint of like pen users, fountain pen users, it was fun to go to. I don't know that I would recommend it as a long distance trip for people, unless you're really into washi tape and stickers and that kind of thing, because you were able to buy directly from small makers, which is kind of cool. The Little Craft Fest was a much bigger event. It was held in a large hotel ballroom and just had a very different vibe. It was still a lot of stickers and washi tape, but the it just had a different vibe. I think that the costs to get in were different and kind of how they organized it. A couple of the vendors that I had worked with or talked to in Chicago, now we're all friends. That I talked to them in Houston, and several of them did not do as well at Little Craft Fest. And I don't know if it was because there were more vendors, there were closer to 100 vendors there, or if it was the audience. There were much younger people, newer to all of this. Like the people in Chicago were like ready to lay down the money. And so like I talked with one friend of mine and she's like, I would do the Chicago Stationery Fest again in a heartbeat. But she's like, I will not come back for this Houston event. No way. She's like, I didn't cover my costs. It was too expensive. It was a longer event. It was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Houston, where the Chicago event was Saturday and Sunday only. So,
and being a native of Houston, I never made it to Drum Goals because when I grew up there, I was not into pins not into fountain pens. I was into the Office Depot pen aisle. But the area where Little Craft Fest in the Woodlands, Houston is massive. So it's not Houston. You're on the outskirts, and you're probably 40 miles from Houston proper. So that's one thing that could contribute possibly, because it's kind of in its own little area. But hearing you talk about these, and this is going to lead into my second to last question, is
sure.
You have a very active Patreon, which has the book club and it has the podcast. So if you're not familiar with Anna's Patreon, go check that out, because she does episodes where she does conversations about these things. So she's talked about in more detail about some of the show experiences and things like that. So in terms of Patreon, how long have you had the Patreon going? And aside from the book club and others, what are some of the because I'm not a book club person, so I don't really do some of the Zoom calls and things like that, but I still follow along with the podcast and things. So just kind of talk about the Patreon and the podcast, and
Sure.
What made you decide to do your own podcast?
Crazy. I don't know. I honestly, it was one of those things where so I had the Patreon before I started doing this full time, and we had been doing this sort of monthly meetup, which had started off as more of just a ask the desk, like, talk to me about your pens, or like, do you have questions or whatever, and give people an opportunity. And it sort of evolved into the book club. So if someone is interested in doing the Patreon meetups, we do them once a month. They're usually on a Sunday around 3:00 Central Time. It's just sort of midday. It's not the best time for everybody, but we've tried a couple other times, and this one was the one that people could rearrange their schedules enough. It's usually not too early or too late on the East and West Coasts. and we moved it up from 3:30 to 3 o'clock because we had somebody in England who wanted to come, and like they're like it was like 11:30, and we're like, if we do it at 11, she can hang out for like an hour and then go to bed, and so that so we moved it around a little bit, but yeah. So the Patreon meetup is the intellectual tier and up, so the $10 a month people, and the book club is like a small part. We pick a book, we talk about it for like 15 minutes, and then we just babble about whatever, like pen shows and events and who bought what and that kind of stuff. But at my base tier, you get access to the monthly newsletter, which includes my printables. So this is something that I added on after I stopped working a full-time job. And this is basically like I had been building calendars for myself to put into my planner, and like because I'm a graphic designer, I have to design them. So like my strawberry theme, if you are a Patreon member, you can download your own strawberry themed planner setup. And I've been making I started them at B6, and then I was like, tell me what other sizes you want, and so they're now available in A5, A6, B6, and weeks, which surprised me. And then I realized that there are other journal makers that do a weeks size, but it's not an actual Hobonichi weeks, so it doesn't have, it may not necessarily have a built-in monthly calendar kind of thing. So the deal is my printable that I offer is a full month on 2 pages kind of thing. So you can, like, I use a blank planner, and so that's how that got started. And what else do I do? The podcast. The podcast is every 2 weeks, and it is just me sitting in a room talking to a microphone. I call it TLDR, and it started off as basically being like Link Love, which is one of my most popular posts each week, basically a version of that just done live. So Link Love's too long, you didn't want to read it, so I'm going to basically read it to you, kind of. But it's not usually the same content. It's like I go through new pen releases, new ink releases, and then I usually have like a general topic of whatever wild hair I have up my butt. Which lately has been yelling about tariffs. So if you don't want to hear about that, fast forward.
No, I've enjoyed it because when you're coming back from an event, you get to hear a different view, because attendees are going to have a different view than someone who's selling, or, I feel like some of these shows, it's a lot of newer people, so they don't have reference. They don't have comparison points. But someone who's been to pin shows and stationary events and it's a different view, because I'm not a vendor, but I've been around the pin stuff long enough. You kind of almost feel like one in a way if you've been going to shows enough. It's a different way you approach it than someone who's new, who's going in like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I need everything, versus, oh, I'm going in, I'm looking to get one pin from this maker and maybe this ink, and then hang out with people I've met and, things like that. So it's a different view, but definitely check that out. And up for the final question that I've been asking all the guests: what's next for Well Appointed Desk?
What is next? I honestly, hopefully more of the same, and more of it is really like my goal. Not to dwell on the tariffs, but there was every intention of having more washi tape designs designed by me available in the shop, and then washi tape all comes from China, so we're kind of on hold on washi tape until they remove, because nobody wants to spend $12 on a roll of washi tape. Not gonna happen. I don't want to spend $12 on a roll of washi tape. So we're gonna have to wait this out a little bit. Luckily, I ordered a whole bunch of Inky Dreams just before, and actually when it arrived, they had already put the like crazy 150% tariff, and I was like, if I have to pay 150% on this, I'm gonna cry. Like that's insane. But somehow I managed to avert the crisis, and it arrived, and I didn't have to pay additional tariffs because anyway, neither here nor there. But this is definitely going to affect, I think, not just what I make in the shop, but also what I can find from other vendors, because I know that like Creeping Moon and Sticky and some of these other companies are facing the same problems of either having to pay tariffs and therefore having to charge more for their products, or trying to figure out like, what can I make domestically to keep those costs down. And washi tape, no one makes it in the United States. I mean, washi in and of itself is Japanese paper to begin with. So, you know, all the Tomoe River products, like I'm waiting to see what happens with all the journals and the 2026 products. And like, is that going to just go insane? I don't know. But so, I mean, like I said, totally off tangent. I didn't mean to. For the site, we will keep doing what we're doing. I am, Jessie's going to Africa. She's helping her daughter who is got like a semester abroad in Africa studying snakes. So she's going to be off the grid. She's been out for several months anyway, just because life is crazy. But yeah, so I've started doing more ink reviews. So those are going to start rolling back in. I had been letting Jessie do all of them. So I laugh because like my ink reviews were like at a year out of date. I'm so sorry, but like I got to catch up somehow. So more ink reviews, just more of the stuff. And if there's anything that people are wishing that we covered more of, please let me know. You can drop me a line, chair@wellappointeddesk.com. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like.
No, very cool. So, Anna, thanks once again. Thanks for taking some time to talk today. I think this was a great conversation, kind of learning the history and like little tidbits of coloring, and how that came to be. Because I know I bought a vintage Rolodex that's sitting off to the side. I can't show because it's the big metal one with a dual thing. Not realizing how many cards fit in one of those. So my couple of packs with my smaller ink collection, I've got a lot of room to grow, so I think I'm going to start doing a card per pin or something like that on one side and then inks on the other. But, definitely check out the Well Appointed Desk website, the store, pick up a rickshaw bag or something like that because they are very colorful and they stand out in the crowd. And rickshaw, you're not wrong. Everybody loves them. They're a great product. So, I appreciate you coming. And if you're new to the DWRD Net stationary feed, don't forget we are available audio only on Apple and Spotify. But, Anna held up some examples and you get to see a cat. So definitely check out the video version if possible, because that's always a win.
You only saw one cat. That's like, it's hardly anything. You weren't missing anything.
So until next time, once again, thanks to Anna from the Well Appointed Desk, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you.